All right, we are back, and now we are talking about the UFC and the UFC potentially writing into the fighters' contracts that if they start a business, an enterprise outside of fighting or having to do with fighting or any really business that they create, the UFC gets a percentage of this. Now, I should start with this is pure speculation. So we're really working off of hey, if this was in place, here are our thoughts. Because, and I say this is pure speculation because I am working from a Bloody Elbow article, and I'm going to tab to that right now. And there's a selection from this article, and I will link to it in the description. It said, Sean, referring to Sean O'Malley, said earlier this year he wanted to open a cannabis dispensary to begin a business empire to rival or eclipse that of Conor McGregor's, but that may have a major drawback thanks to a change in UFC contracts that could allow the company to take a piece of any business venture a fighter launches. And then it goes on to say, but the UFC cuts themselves in on the deal and gets a large percentage of it. So the premise here being that the UFC has written in their contracts that if the fighter starts a business, then the UFC gets a percentage of that business. This is, again, I must emphasize, we're working off of pure speculation because this is just an article. There's no, I don't have a source. I don't see the contract language, but it's an interesting topic. And so I wanted to cover it. David, what do you think about the UFC writing this into the fighters' contracts?
It's wrong. It's 100% wrong. They already did something like this a few years back. I don't know if you remember when Reebok became their sponsor. I don't know if it's still Reebok. So things changed. When Reebok became the main sponsor, the rules were they could only wear the Reebok uniform. They couldn't come out with their banners with all their sponsors. Their sponsors couldn't be on their clothing. So what Reebok did was, I think they gave each fighter like $5,000 or $10,000 just to wear Reebok, but they couldn't wear nothing else, and they had no saying, right? UFC told them they have to do that. Some of these guys would make way more on their sponsors than the fight. So when they took that away, they were upset. They were losing money. Now, most UFC fighters don't make enough. Let's just say you have a UFC fighter, because only the top fighters make a good amount of money, but let's just say a fighter's getting paid 50 grand and he fights twice a year in the UFC. 50 grand, you have to think 10% goes to the trainer automatically. 30% goes to the manager. Now, after that, a lot of the time they still have to pay from their own pocket for sparring, traveling, a nutritionist, have chef cooking you your private meals. So after it's all said and done, say they fight twice, 100,000, maybe they're left with 20, 30,000. They can't live off that. So now I'm thinking if they're doing a side hustle and they're going to take a percentage of that, I mean, I don't see the benefits of fighting for the UFC. Like it's wrong. They already underpay them by a lot. Look at how much do the big name fighters get? 1,500,000, 2 million. I've heard of upwards of 3 million. But all the top boxing guys make 20, 30, 40 million in a fight. A champion will make a minimum $1-2 million. So it's sad if it's true. I hope it's not, but that is wrong. Taking a percentage of their business, their own private business, taking from their family, like that's just becoming too greedy. I don't know what you think about it, but
let me pose this question to you. I'm going to take the UFC's position, right? We're the UFC. We market these fighters to no end. We have a marketing machine. That is all we do. We make sure that when these guys win, we propel them. We turn their names into household names to the point where they have the potential to make millions of dollars outside of the UFC. For that, we want to make sure that we're not leaving money on the table. As a business, we are promoting their names, and because of that, we think that if they make money off of their name, that we should get a cut. What would you say to that?
Oh, from a business aspect, I love it. I love it. And they could get away with that. And they're partially right, right? They are promoting because of the UFC. They're big, it's monopolized. So from a business aspect, I get it, but that's the potential to make millions, right? What about the people that aren't making millions? UFC is not stepping in. We promoted you, we couldn't make you millions, so we're gonna pay you ourselves. They're not gonna do that, right? So yeah, I can see from a business point of view. And I heard that's something that the WWE does. You don't even own your name. I believe if you do business outside of there, they own half of it. So from a business point, I get it. I don't think it's right, but I do get it because they're already profiting from their fights, paying them pennies, literally. Look at Nate Diaz, made more in a boxing fight against Jake Paul than his whole career combined in the UFC. It's crazy.
Yeah, I do think it's really so. I know what they're trying to do, right? Um, they're trying to prevent situations where they make a star such as Conor McGregor. They capitalize on some of his superstardom, which they do. There's no doubt about it that the UFC is a marketing machine, and they make these guys into superstars. You can see it, the drama, the storytelling. They are making these guys into larger than life figures. And so what they want to do is, if there is someone like Conor McGregor that is able to catapult himself into these hundreds of millions of dollars, perhaps billions, they want to be able to take a percentage of that, because in their eyes, hey, we really contributed to that. But I think it needs to be something where there's a cutoff. I think there needs to be nuance to where if you promote anything like your Twitter, your product, if you use our platform to do that, then we can take, a cut of your business, a percentage of your business. And a lot of this, I think the reasonableness depends on what the percentage is. If it's a lower percentage, I can see it more. If it's a significant percentage, then I think that is really, this is really to the point where it's so greedy that it's making the UFC really look bad. And I know they're able to get away with it because, like you said, they have all of the leverage. Like there's no other MMA organization that even comes remotely close to the UFC. They're so far ahead. These other organizations can't reach them. So they're able to have these type of tactics where the market just can't balance it. But there's something to be said about there becoming an equilibrium when you're treating your fighters already. You're suppressing their pay because their pay is suppressed. We know the UFC takes a large percentage cut of that revenue. Let's just say, I'll guess it's the UFC gets like 78% and the fighters get 22%, something like that. They already get the large cut. They've already, like you said, they already took away the sponsors. They already own the clothes, so they're getting the sponsorship deal in effect, right? They get the money from whatever it was, Reebok. Now I don't know if it's Venom or someone else, but they get that apparel money, and the fighters get here's your standard cut. So they really have limited the fighters' pay, and now they're trying to take some of the upside from the fighters. So I do think they've pushed it too far. And there needs to be some type of structuring on this. It can't just be, hey, if you start any type of business, then we are going to get X percent. That to me is unfair, because you have to let these people work outside of fighting, because for like you said, a lot of them, for the fighters that aren't in the elite tier, even the elite fighters, if they're not personalities, or if they don't just have that charisma, they don't get that level of popularity that yields the high dollars. So they either have to be really, really good or really, really charismatic or really marketable to make that real money where they're getting into the possible millions of dollars. Otherwise, like you said, they're out there balancing their checkbooks. Hey, I made 100,000 on this event. Now I have to pay my manager, my coaches, my gym, my rent, my personal finances, and they're trying to make it work.
Yeah. Think about someone like Nate Diaz. How many times in the last 5 years has he fought in the UFC? Once, twice?
It hasn't been too many. I mean, there was Jorge Masvidal, there was Tony Ferguson, and I can't remember that many more recently. He fights infrequently, but now he's finished with his contract.
Yeah, he's finished with his contract. So even if they gave him 500,000, a million for someone of his status, that's not a lot of money. Say he made a million, a little over a million in those 5 years. Like I said, 30% goes to your manager, 10% to your trainer, his lifestyle, his bills, it's not a lot. And I think UFC is going to push it. It's pushing it too much because now you have all these MMA fighters that are saying, you know what, once my contract finishes, I want to go box these YouTubers, or I want to go box these boxing world champions because one fight could set me up for the rest of my life.
Right. And I think, and the boxers are feasting on it because the UFC, the MMA fighters, their boxing's not up to par. So it's a way for the boxers to elevate their status in effect off of the UFC's marketing.
No, and it doesn't even elevate the boxers, maybe the YouTubers, but it didn't elevate Mayweather to beat McGregor. Everyone knew what was going to happen. The only people that were pumped about it were the MMA fans. The boxing fans know what it is. Just like this Jake Paul fight and Nate Diaz, he almost got knocked out in the first round. Nate Diaz, it wasn't even a fight because I knew Nate Diaz was just going to punch with pity pat punches. Of course, at the end they said he was old and Jake Paul, but Jake Paul actually trains like a fighter. But the thing is, it's a win-win for both. No danger to the boxer; he's going to make easy millions. These MMA fighters that made pennies are now going to get a fight or two where they get to set themselves up for the rest of their life. Look at all the punishment he took in the UFC. Nate Diaz, the great wars that he gave us, everything for him to make more in one boxing match against a YouTuber than in his 20 fights in the UFC, where whatever it is he had. It's crazy. And now they want to take away from the fighters, and it's possible since they want to lock in these contracts. So when they do go fight boxing when they're retired, hey, we're going to get a cut of that too. So I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, that might be something that is on the horizon, and maybe it already is. But where it's like after the UFC, right? Like even once your contract is fulfilled, we get a part of whatever ventures. But you just reminded me that the UFC does have leverage, but also they're losing some ground, and it's because of Jake Paul. Yeah. Jake Paul is causing them to lose ground, and he is opening up, there's a gap there where he's opening up opportunity for MMA fighters to make money outside of the UFC. And the same with, to a lesser extent, with bare knuckle boxing.
Yeah.
We've seen a few MMA fighters venture into that, and Mike Perry is actually doing quite well as like an after career post UFC with bare knuckle fighting. And in another episode, I want to talk about all of the media that the MMA fighters are starting. But for now, I don't like this approach, and I do think it will have a bad effect ultimately on the UFC. You have to look in the long run, and if you treat people badly for long enough, it's going to come up against you. And Jake Paul recognizes that. He is quite clever, and he's really starting. He's picking up on this, and he's trying to give it momentum. And with that momentum, it all feeds into what he's doing. I know he's with the PFL, so they have their own they have their own initiative brewing, but the UFC is going to start leaking fighters because people don't like being treated like this. And ultimately, it's just Mark Cuban said something one time, and I think this was on Shark Tank, but it always stuck with me. He's like, he said, you don't want to win the deal too much. And what he meant was, you don't want to, sometimes you can get everything in a negotiation, right? You might not even have to compromise. Like you might get a really, a great deal for you, but it leaves the other person feeling burned. And so the UFC could be getting too good of a deal on the fighters because they are in this front runner position. And ultimately, it may come back to them, because once you scorn people and you burn them enough, they might just decide later to leave your organization, even though it doesn't really make, let's say technical sense, but they dislike you so much. And maybe the fans start to pick up on that, and the fans already have. The true MMA fans know how the UFC has been really suppressing fighter pay. So I do think it will come back to them.
Yeah, I agree.
But that covers what I wanted to talk about. Did you have anything to add on the percentage or fighter pay?
No, I mean, they could get away with it, so they're going to keep doing it. And if they do raise it one day, it's going to be bare minimum. I heard the UFC fighters don't really get a percentage of the gate or merchandise sales at the events. That's what they complain about too. So let's see what happens.
One other thing that I've noticed is they've kept the fighter bonuses. So after every event, there will be bonuses like fight of the night, etc. And they've kept those at 50,000 now for I don't know how long. It's probably over. It's been a long time. Maybe I don't remember how long, but let's just say it's like 10 years, 15 years. Yeah. Inflation has now made that a totally different figure. So it's somewhat
disincentive. Let me cut in real quick. And the thing is this: the UFCs have gone up from $40, 50, 60, now for bigger fights 70, but the bonuses stay the same.
You're right. The pay-per-view numbers, they were like I think they were like $50 to start with, or something like that.
Cheaper. They were actually cheaper, but yeah, they were like $39.
Yeah, so they've gone along and increased their price as they've progressed, but the bonuses have not.
Yeah, ticket sales have gone up too, like so much, but not the bonuses.
And there are so many more examples of this type of interplay that I don't even know about. But the point is that they need to compensate more, and they just need to give in a little bit. I think if they treat the fighters more fair and they just open to the idea of, hey, let's just increase their pay to slightly more competitive, then they can look into the long term rather than trying to extract as much value as possible in the short term, because the long term is going to, it looks bad if they continue at their current path.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all I have for this episode. David, thanks for joining.
All right.